How could my son be seconds away from saying "I do" when I knew something was wrong? Why did one note from a stranger make me scream to stop the wedding in front of everyone? And how did the truth shatter our whole world before I decided to handle it the only way that works, through the systems they respect? My name is Gareth Colton. I'm 58 years old. I work in compliance and finance for a small firm. People think I'm boring. They think quiet men like me will stay polite no matter what happens. They're wrong. How could my son be seconds away from saying "I do" when I knew something was wrong? Why did one note from a stranger make me scream to stop the wedding in front of everyone? And how did the truth shatter our whole world before I decided to handle it the only way that works, through the systems they respect? I'm not a dramatic man. I don't raise my voice. I don't make scenes. But I learned something important over the past few months. Quiet men get ignored until they finally act. And when they act, the room changes. It started small. Little moments that felt off, but not loud enough to call out. My son Xavier, he's 28, met Mira Halden at a charity event 14 months ago. She was 26, camera ready, with a smile that looked perfect in every photo. Xavier fell fast. Too fast. I remember the first time he brought her to our house for dinner. It was a Sunday evening in October. Rain tapping against the windows. Leanne, my wife, had made her famous pot roast. "Dad, Mom, this is Mira," Xavier said, practically glowing as he held her hand. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you both," Mira said, her smile bright and warm. "Xavier talks about you constantly." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Leanne hugged her immediately. "Welcome, sweetheart. Come in, come in." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, but her eyes were already scanning the room, taking inventory. I noticed but didn't say anything. Dinner went smoothly. Too smoothly. Mira knew exactly what to say. She complimented the food, asked thoughtful questions about our work, laughed at Xavier's stories, but something felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced this performance. "So how did you two meet?" Leanne asked, passing the potatoes. "At the Riverside Foundation Gala," Mira said. "I was there representing my family's charitable interests. Xavier was there with his firm. We just connected." Xavier squeezed her hand. I knew right away she was special. 3 months later, he called me at work. "Dad, you got a minute?" "Of course. What's up?" "I proposed last night." Mira said yes. "We're engaged." I sat back in my chair, phone pressed to my ear. 3 months. They'd known each other for 3 months. That's wonderful, son. Congratulations." "You don't sound excited." "I am. I'm just surprised. It's quick." "When you know," he said, his voice defensive already. "I thought you'd be happy for me." "I am happy. Of course I am. Have you set a date?" "We're thinking next summer. Maybe June. Mira's already looking at venues." "Next summer. Less than a year away." I rubbed my forehead. "Well, your mother will be thrilled. Let's all have dinner this week and celebrate properly." But the dinner never felt like a celebration. It felt like a presentation. Mira arrived with color-coded binders full of wedding ideas, venue options, guest lists, budget breakdowns, everything organized, everything planned, everything moving at a speed that made my head spin. "We found the perfect place," Mira said, spreading photos across our dining table. "The Ashwood Estate. It's beautiful. They have one opening in June." "Just one?" Leanne asked. "It's very popular. We'd have to book it this week or we'll lose it." I looked at the price sheet. My stomach tightened. "This is expensive." "It's Xavier's wedding, Dad," Xavier said quickly. "It only happens once." "I understand, but—" "We can afford it," Mira interrupted gently, putting her hand on Xavier's arm. "Between our savings and family contributions, it'll work out perfectly." Our savings. Family contributions. She'd already done the math, already knew what we had. I glanced at Xavier. He was looking at her like she hung the moon. Over the next few months, I started noticing patterns. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together formed a picture I didn't like. Mira always steered conversations toward money, inheritance structures, trust funds, Xavier's future earning potential. She framed it as planning and being responsible, but it felt like reconnaissance. One evening, about 4 months before the wedding, I was in my home office reviewing some contracts. Xavier knocked and came in. "Hey, Dad, got a minute?" "Sure, sit down." He closed the door behind him. That was unusual. "So, Mira and I were talking about after the wedding, about finances." "Okay." She thinks we should set up a joint account. Combine everything, make it easier. That's a big step. You've thought it through? Of course. We're getting married. That's what married people do. Some do. Some keep things separate for a while. Test the waters. His jaw tightened. You don't trust her. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I can hear it in your voice. He stood up. Mira said you might react like this. There it was again, Mira said, like she'd prepped him for my concerns. Xavier, I'm just suggesting you take your time. I don't need your permission. I'm 28. I can make my own decisions. He left before I could respond. I sat there staring at the closed door, feeling the distance growing between us. 3 weeks before the wedding, we all went to the dress boutique for Mira's final fitting. Her family was there. Her mother, Selma, a woman in her early 50s who spoke in soft, calculated tones. Her brother, Kellen, 32, loud, the kind of guy who thought volume equaled confidence. I stood in the hallway while they fussed over Mira's dress inside. Kellen came out, saw me, and grinned. Gareth, looking sharp, man. Thank you. He clapped me on the shoulder, hard enough to sting. You excited? Your boy's finally growing up, huh? I'm very happy for him. Must be weird, though. Letting go. I mean, you've had him under your wing for almost 30 years. That's a long time to be the boss. He laughed like it was a joke. Good thing Mira's patient with family stuff. Some girls wouldn't put up with overbearing fathers-in-law. I kept my face neutral. I'm not overbearing. Hey, I'm just saying. Weddings bring out the best and worst in families, you know? Good thing you're the type to roll with it. Stay in your lane. Let the kids live their lives. He patted my shoulder again and went back inside. I stood there feeling the sting of his words. It wasn't a conversation. It was a test. He wanted to see if I'd push back. When I didn't, he knew he'd won. Later that day, at the hotel where wedding guests were starting to arrive, Selma cornered me near the elevators. Gareth, can we chat for a moment? Of course. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I just want to say how grateful we are that you've been so supportive. Xavier is lucky to have a father who knows when to step back and let him make his own choices. I want what's best for him. Of course you do. We all do. She paused. You know, some fathers struggle with this transition. They try to control things, create drama. It never ends well. I met her gaze. I'm not trying to control anything. Good, because Mira and Xavier have such a beautiful future ahead of them. It would be tragic if family interference ruined that. Her smile widened. But I'm sure that won't be an issue. You seem like a reasonable man. She walked away before I could respond. The message was clear. Stay quiet. Don't make waves. Or else. I started watching more carefully after that. Mira's phone was constantly in her hand, always buzzing, always tilted away from view. Conversation stopped abruptly when I entered rooms. Xavier looked exhausted all the time, like he wasn't sleeping well. One night, 2 weeks before the wedding, I tried to talk to him. Xavier, are you okay? You seem stressed. I'm fine, Dad. If you need to slow things down, I don't need to slow things down. Everything's fine. Stop worrying. I'm your father. Worrying is part of the job. He turned to face me, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. You want to know what Mira told me? She said you'd try this. She said you'd create doubt because you can't handle not being in control anymore. And you know what? She was right. My chest tightened. Xavier, I'm done with this conversation. I'm marrying Mira whether you like it or not. You can either support me or stay out of my way. He walked out. I stood there feeling like I'd lost my son to someone I barely knew. The day before the wedding, I arrived at the venue early. The Ashwood estate was beautiful. White flowers everywhere, soft piano music drifting through the halls, everything picture perfect. I wandered into the back corridor to clear my head. That's when I saw her, a woman standing near the side entrance. She wasn't dressed like a guest. She looked tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She was watching the family with an expression I recognized, the look of someone who'd already lost something and was trying to warn someone else before it was too late. She caught my eye, held my gaze for a long moment, then looked away. I didn't approach her. I didn't know who she was. But something about her presence unsettled me. That night, at the rehearsal dinner, the tension was thick. Kellen made another joke about old men who couldn't adapt to new generations. Selma talked endlessly about commitment and loyalty and not letting outsiders interfere with a marriage. Mira sat beside Xavier, her hand always on his arm, her smile always perfect. Xavier barely looked at me. When he did, his expression was guarded, distant, like I was a stranger he was forced to tolerate. I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Leanne tried to comfort me. "You need to let go," she said softly. "He's an adult. He's making his own choices." "What if they're the wrong choices?" "Then he'll learn, but you can't protect him from everything." "I'm not trying to protect him from everything. I'm trying to protect him from her." She was quiet for a moment. "You really don't trust her, do you?" "No, I don't." The morning of the wedding, I stood in my kitchen making coffee, my hands shaking. Leanne came downstairs. "Are you going to behave today?" "Of course." "Gareth, I'm serious. No drama, no scenes. Just smile and support your son." That's all I've ever tried to do. But even as I said it, I knew something was about to break. I could feel it in my bones. I drove to the venue early. The parking lot was already filling up. I saw Mira's family arrive together. Selma in the center directing everything, Kellen scanning the crowd like security, Mira gliding through it all with her perfect smile. I walked inside. The venue manager, Maura Lyle, greeted me in the lobby. "Mr. Colton, everything's running smoothly. It's going to be a beautiful ceremony." "Thank you." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Are you all right? You look a bit pale." "Just nerves." She nodded but didn't look convinced. "Well, if you need anything, let me know." I went to the back corridor to collect myself. My heart was pounding. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That's when the stranger approached me. It was the same woman from yesterday. Up close, she looked even more exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hands trembling as she reached into her purse. "Are you Gareth Colton?" she whispered. "Yes. Who are you?" "My name is Iris." She pressed a folded piece of paper into my hand. "Read this. Please, before it's too late." "Before what's too late?" But she was already walking away, disappearing into the crowd of arriving guests. I unfolded the note with shaking hands. The handwriting was shaky, but legible. She did this to my nephew, 2 years ago. Same pattern, same family, same lies. Don't let her finish it. Iris Morrow. I read it 3 times. My vision blurred. My chest tightened. I looked up to find Iris, but she was gone. I walked into the ceremony space in a daze. The music was starting. Guests were finding their seats. Xavier stood at the front, looking nervous but excited. Mira was still in the back, getting final touches. I sat beside Leanne in the front row. She took my hand and smiled. She had no idea what I was holding. The music changed. The bridal entrance. Everyone stood. Mira appeared at the end of the aisle in her white dress, looking radiant and perfect. But all I could see was the note in my hand. All I could hear were the words, same pattern, same family, same lies. The officiant began speaking. Mira reached the front and took Xavier's hands. They smiled at each other. The room felt warm and happy and full of hope. And then I heard myself shout, "Stop!" My voice cracked across the room like thunder. Every head turned. The music cut off. Xavier stared at me in shock. Mira's face went pale. Kellen stepped forward, his expression furious. "Stop the wedding!" I shouted again, standing up, holding the note in my shaking hand. "We need to stop, right now. Something's wrong." The room exploded. Voices everywhere. Leanne grabbed my arm. "Gareth, what are you doing?" Xavier came down the aisle toward me, his face red with rage. "Dad, what the hell?" "We need to talk, now, before this goes any further." "Are you insane?" Kellen shouted from the front. "Sit down." But I didn't sit. I stood there, holding that note, feeling every eye on me, knowing I'd just destroyed my relationship with my son. Or saved his life. I didn't know which yet. The officiant stepped back, clearly out of his depth. Maura appeared at the side door, her face tight with professional concern. The wedding planner, Tessa Varn, moved toward the family with her hands raised. "Everyone, please, let's take a breath," Tessa said, her voice strained. But there was no taking a breath. The room was chaos. Half the guests were on their phones recording. The other half were whispering loudly. Xavier pushed past Mira and came straight at me. "What did you just do?" His voice was low and shaking. "What did you just do to me?" "Xavier, listen." "No, I'm done listening to you." He was shouting now, his face inches from mine. "You just humiliated me in front of everyone I care about. You just ruined the most important day of my life." "I have information. I don't care." He knocked my hand away when I tried to show him the note. Mira warned me. She said you might try something like this. She said some fathers can't let go, can't stand not being in control. And I defended you. I told her you wouldn't do that to me. Those words hit me like a punch. She warned him. She'd prepared him for this exact scenario. which meant she knew someone might try to stop it, which meant she'd planned for interference. Leanne was crying beside me. "Gareth, please, sit down. Apologize. We can fix this." "Mrs. Colton, perhaps we should move to a private space," Maura suggested quietly. "We can't continue like this." Mira was still at the front, surrounded by her family. Kellen had his phone out, talking urgently to someone. Selma had her arm around Mira, who was crying, or at least appearing to cry, into her mother's shoulder. "Xavier," Mira called out, her voice trembling. "Baby, come here." Xavier turned toward her, torn. He looked back at me, his eyes full of betrayal. "I never want to see you again. Do you understand me? Never." "Son, please, just look at this note." "I don't care about your note. I don't care about your paranoid conspiracy theories. I'm done with you." He started walking back toward Mira, but she stood and came down the aisle herself, moving with careful, measured steps in her dress. When she reached us, she touched Xavier's arm gently. "Hey," she said softly. "It's okay. Let's take a few minutes. Talk to your father. Maybe that will help him feel better." It was a perfect performance. Calm, understanding, mature. Like she was the reasonable adult managing an unstable situation. Several guests nodded approvingly. I heard someone whisper, "Oh, what a gracious bride." Xavier looked at her like she was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. "You sure?" "Of course. He's your father." She looked at me with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Mr. Colton, why don't we go somewhere private and talk? I think there's been a misunderstanding." Kellen stepped forward. "I don't think that's a good idea, Mira. It's fine, Kellen." She kept her voice gentle but firm. "We're all family here. We can work this out." Maura led us to a small room off the main hall. Xavier walked beside Mira, holding her hand. Kellen and Selma followed close behind. Leanne came with me, her hand gripping my arm so tightly it hurt. Tessa closed the door, sealing us in. The room was meant for bride prep. Mirrors, soft lighting, chairs covered in white fabric. Now it felt like an interrogation room. Xavier stood with his arms crossed, his jaw tight. Mira sat in one of the chairs, her dress pooling around her. Kellen leaned against the wall, glaring daggers at me. Selma stood behind Mira's chair like a guard. "You have 5 minutes," Xavier said, his voice like ice. "Then I'm going back out there and marrying her whether you like it or not." I took a breath, trying to organize my thoughts. I'm not good at emotional speeches. I'm better with facts and timelines. But right now, I only had a warning from a stranger. "Xavier, I know this looks bad." "Looks bad? You just screamed in front of 200 people." "I had to. Someone gave me this." I held up the note. "A note from who?" "A woman named Iris Morrow. She says Mira did this before, 2 years ago. Same pattern, same family, same lies." Mira's eyes widened. "What? That's insane. I don't even know who that is." "She seems to know you." "Dad, this is crazy," Xavier said. "You're trusting a random note from a stranger over my fiancée?" "It's not random. It's specific. It mentions a pattern." "What pattern?" Kellen interrupted, his voice hard. "What exactly are you accusing my sister of?" "I'm not accusing anyone of anything yet. I'm saying we need to slow down and verify." "Verify what?" Selma's voice was sharp now, the soft mask dropping. "That my daughter isn't some kind of criminal? Based on an anonymous note?" "It's not anonymous. She signed her name." "A name you can't verify," Mira said softly, wiping her eyes. "Mr. Colton, I know you don't like me. I've tried so hard to get you to accept me, but I know you don't trust me, and that's okay. But this is too much. I never said I don't like you. You didn't have to say it." She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "I've felt it from the beginning. Every time I came to your house, every time I tried to include you in our plans. You've been cold, distant, like you were waiting for me to fail." Xavier moved closer to her. "She's right, Dad. You've been judging her from day one." "That's not true." "Then why did you do this?" His voice cracked. "Why would you humiliate us like that if you weren't trying to destroy our relationship?" Leanne spoke up for the first time, her voice shaking. "Gareth, maybe you misunderstood. Maybe this woman has you confused with someone else. She used Mira's name. She knew exactly who I was. Or she's lying," Kellen said. "Ever think of that? Maybe she's some crazy person with a grudge." "Why would a stranger lie about this?" "I don't know, but you're about to destroy your son's life because of it." I looked at Xavier. Really looked at him. He was trembling with anger and hurt. He looked at me like I was a monster. And maybe, from his perspective, I was. Maybe I'd just become the villain in his love story based on nothing more than paranoid instinct and a stranger's note. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The pattern I'd been seeing for months, the speed, the money questions, the isolation, the way Mira always seemed one step ahead. "Xavier," I said quietly, "how much do you really know about Mira?" "I know everything I need to know." "Do you know about her previous relationships?" Mira stood up. "That's private." "Is it? Because this note mentions a nephew." "I dated someone 2 years ago," Mira said quickly. "It didn't work out. We broke up. That's it. There's no pattern, no scheme, no lies." "Who was he?" "That's none of your business." "It is if you're about to become part of my family." "She doesn't owe you her entire history, Dad," Xavier said. "You're being controlling." There was that word again. Controlling. Like wanting to protect my son was a character flaw. "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to protect you." "From what? A woman who loves me? A woman who makes me happy? Or from having a life that doesn't revolve around you?" That hurt more than I expected. "Xavier, that's not fair. None of this is fair," he was shouting again. "You want to know what's not fair? Having a father who can't be happy for me, who looks for problems that don't exist, who trusts strangers over his own son. I trust you. I don't trust her." Mira made a small sound, a sob or a gasp. Xavier immediately put his arm around her. "Get out." "What?" "Get out of this room. Get out of this venue. I don't want you here." "Xavier, please. You made your choice. You chose to believe some random note over your own family, so you're not my family anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. Leanne gasped beside me. "Son, don't say that. I mean it. You're done. We're done." He turned to Mira. "We're getting married, right now, with or without him." Selma smiled. Kellen nodded approvingly. Mira looked up at Xavier with adoration and relief, and I realized I'd lost. Not just the battle, the whole war. I'd played my hand too early with too little proof, and now Xavier would run straight back into whatever trap Mira had set, more committed than ever because I'd tried to stop it. Tessa opened the door. "Shall we continue the ceremony?" "Yes," Mira said, standing up and smoothing her dress. "Let's not let this ruin our beautiful day." They started filing out. Xavier didn't look at me. Leanne was crying quietly. Kellen paused at the door. "You should leave, quietly, before you embarrass yourself more." But I didn't move. I stood there holding that note, watching my son walk away, knowing I was right but unable to prove it. The room emptied. I was alone with Leanne. "What have you done?" she whispered. "What I had to. You just lost our son. Better to lose him now than watch him get destroyed later. You don't know that will happen. You don't know anything." But I did know. I knew the way Mira's eyes had flickered when I mentioned the nephew. I knew the way Kellen's jaw had tightened. I knew the way Selma had smoothly redirected the conversation every time I got close to something real. I knew this was a performance, and I'd just given them exactly the villain they needed to make Xavier hold on tighter. "Come on," Leanne said. "Let's go home." "I'm not leaving." "Gareth," I said, "I'm not leaving. Not yet." I walked out of the room. The guests were slowly filtering back into the ceremony space. The music was starting again. People looked at me with a mixture of pity and disapproval as I passed. I found Maura near the front desk. "Mr. Colton, are you—" "I need to know something," I interrupted. "Do you have security cameras in the venue?" She hesitated. "Yes, standard protocol." "If something happens during an event, what's your procedure?" "We file an incident report and preserve any relevant footage. Even if the family doesn't request it?" "Yes, it's policy. Why?" "Just checking." She studied my face. "Mr. Colton, are you okay? Do you need me to call someone?" "No, thank you." I walked toward the back corridor. I needed to find Iris. I needed more information. The note wasn't enough. I needed names, dates, details. I needed something concrete. But as I rounded the corner, I nearly ran into someone, a man in his mid-40s, dressed casually but neatly. He looked familiar somehow. "Gareth Colton?" he asked. "Yes. Who are you?" "Davin Rokes. We met at your firm's networking event last year. I'm a friend of your colleague Raymond." "Oh, right. I remember." Vaguely. "Listen, I don't mean to intrude, but I saw what happened in there. And I think you should know something." My pulse quickened. "What?" "I know Iris Morrow. She's my sister's friend, her nephew." He paused, looking uncomfortable. Her nephew was engaged to Mira Halden 3 years ago. It ended badly, very badly. How badly? Bad enough that he's still dealing with the fallout? Legal issues, financial issues. The whole family got caught up in it. What kind of legal issues? I don't have all the details, but Iris has been trying to warn people about Mira's family for 2 years. Nobody listens. They're good at making her seem crazy. Where is she now? She left. She was afraid they'd have her removed if she stayed. I felt frustration boiling up. I need to talk to her. I need details. I can connect you, but... He glanced back toward the ceremony space. You might want to handle this carefully. These people are dangerous. Dangerous how? Not physically, legally, financially. They know how to ruin people through the system, make them look unstable, isolate them from support, then extract everything they can. That confirmed what I'd been sensing. This wasn't about love. It was about access, money, control. Give me her number. Davin pulled out his phone and texted me Iris's contact information. Be careful, Mr. Colton. They're very good at what they do. He walked away, leaving me standing in the corridor with more questions than answers. I heard the music swell inside. The ceremony was starting again. Xavier was getting married, and I was out here, alone, with nothing but a stranger's warning and a growing certainty that I was watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. I pulled out my phone and called Iris. She answered on the third ring. Hello? This is Gareth Colton. We need to talk. Now. There was a pause. Then, I know a diner about 10 minutes from there. Rosie's on Maple Street. Meet me in 30 minutes. I'll be there. I hung up and stood there for a moment, listening to the ceremony restart inside. My son was saying vows to a woman I was now certain was running some kind of scheme, and I had 30 minutes to figure out how to stop it before it was too late. I walked toward the exit, ignoring the looks from staff and guests. Leanne was probably inside, watching our son get married without me. But I couldn't think about that now. I had work to do. Rosie's Diner was exactly the kind of place you'd expect. Worn vinyl booths, fluorescent lights, and the smell of coffee and grease. I spotted Iris in the back corner, hunched over a cup of tea, looking even more exhausted than she had at the venue. I slid into the booth across from her. Thank you for meeting me. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. Did they go through with it? Probably. I left before I could stop it a second time. Then it's too late. No, it's not too late until I say it's too late. I leaned forward. Tell me everything, your nephew. What happened? Iris wrapped her hands around her mug. His name is Connor. He was 25 when he met Mira. Same story as your son. Quick relationship, fast engagement, everything perfect on the surface. How did it end? She married him, 6 months after they met. Then everything changed. Iris's voice shook. She pushed him to add her to his accounts, to list her as beneficiary on policies, to give her access to a trust fund his grandmother had left him. She said it was about unity, about trust, about being real partners. My stomach turned. What happened? Within 3 months of the marriage, she filed for separation, claimed abuse, emotional manipulation, made Connor look like a monster. He was blindsided. He tried to fight it, but she had documentation, text messages taken out of context, recordings of arguments she deliberately provoked, witnesses, her family, who backed up every claim. Jesus. The separation turned into a legal nightmare. She demanded half of everything, including the trust fund. Connor's lawyer fought it, but the process was expensive and emotionally destroying him. His reputation was ruined. His family was torn apart trying to help him, and through it all, Mira's family was right there, playing the victim, making him look like the villain. How did it resolve? He settled, gave her $200,000 just to make it stop. She signed an NDA as part of the agreement, so he can't even warn people about what happened. He's broke now, living with my sister, can't hold down a job because his name is tied to all these abuse allegations online. I sat back, feeling sick. And her family was involved? Oh, they ran the whole thing. Mira is the face, but Kellen handles the intimidation. Selma manages the emotional manipulation. They work as a team. They've done it at least twice that I know of. Maybe more. Why haven't the police? Done what? It's all legal. Marriages, divorces, settlements. They're careful. They never cross the line into outright fraud. They just exploit the system. Use the courts and social pressure to extract money from families who want the problem to go away. I thought about Xavier, his trust fund, the family accounts I manage, the inheritance structures. They'd done their research. They knew exactly what access marriage would give Mira. How did you find out about my son's wedding? I keep track of Mira's social media. When I saw engagement photos with your son, I tried to reach out. I called your house, sent emails, but I never got them. Exactly, which means someone intercepted them. They're careful about controlling information flow. I remembered the unknown number that had called me late at night, the way Xavier's email habits had changed, the way Leanne had mentioned Selma talking to her privately about managing me. They've been isolating him, I said quietly, making sure no outside warnings could reach him. That's what they do. They identify marks, usually young men from families with money, and then they wrap them in a cocoon. Friends who raise concerns get cut off. Family who questions things gets labeled as controlling or jealous. By the time the trap closes, the victim is completely alone. Xavier thinks I'm the villain. Of course he does. They've been preparing him to think that for months. Iris's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry I couldn't do more. I thought if I could just get you the note, give you a warning, you might be able to stop it before. You did enough. You tried. But he still married her, didn't he? I checked my phone. No calls, no texts, which meant the ceremony had probably finished by now. Xavier was married. Mira had legal access to everything. I need evidence, I said. Real evidence. Names, dates, documentation. Can your nephew help? He can't. The NDA? Forget the NDA. If we can prove a pattern of fraud, that NDA won't protect anyone. Iris hesitated. He's fragile, Mr. Colton. What they did to him? He's barely holding it together. I don't know if he can relive it. He won't have to relive it. He just needs to point me in the right direction. Give me enough to start building a case. A case for what? They didn't break any laws. Maybe not criminal laws, but fraud is fraud. If we can show a pattern of predatory behavior, we can build a civil case. We can warn other potential victims. We can at least make it harder for them to keep doing this. She studied my face. You're not going to let this go, are you? Would you, if it was your son? She pulled out her phone. I'll talk to Connor, see if he's willing to help. But Mr. Colton, these people are dangerous. Not physically, but they know how to destroy reputations. They'll make you look obsessed, unstable. They'll turn your family against you. They've already done that. Then they'll do worse. They'll go after your job, your finances, your wife. They'll find every weakness and exploit it. Let them try. I gave her my number and stood up. Call me when you talk to Connor, anytime. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. Where are you going now? Home, to start building a timeline. I drove back in silence, my mind racing. The wedding was over. Xavier was married. Mira had achieved her first objective. Now the real game would begin. The isolation, the pressure, the gradual extraction of assets and access. But she didn't know who she was dealing with. I'm not some emotional father who can be bullied into silence. I deal with compliance and risk assessment for a living. I know how to document things. I know how to build cases. I know how to work within systems to create consequences. When I got home, the house was empty. Leanne was probably still at the venue, dealing with the aftermath. Or maybe she was avoiding me. I couldn't blame her. I went to my office and opened my computer. I created a new folder and labeled it with today's date. Then I started building a timeline. First meeting, October, 14 months ago. Engagement, 3 months later. Wedding planning begins immediately. First money questions, November. Isolation begins, December. Pressure to combine finances, March. Wedding, today. I added notes for every concerning interaction. Every time Mira had asked about trusts or inheritance. Every time Kellen had made a veiled threat. Every time Selma had used soft power to manipulate the situation. Then I opened a new document and started listing what I needed. Connor's story, properly documented. Timeline of Mira's previous relationships. Financial records showing pattern of asset access. Communications that were intercepted or blocked. Witness statements from anyone who'd seen the family's manipulation tactics. I heard the front door open, Leanne's footsteps in the hallway. She appeared in my office doorway, still in her dress from the wedding, her makeup smudged from crying. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "Working." "On what?" "Protecting our son. Our son just got married, to the woman he loves, while his father sat in a diner with a stranger instead of being there for him." I looked up at her. Did he ask where I was? She didn't answer. Did he even notice I wasn't there? Of course he noticed. He's hurt. We're all hurt. "Leanne, did Mira seem upset at all during the ceremony? After I left?" "Of course she was upset. You humiliated her in front of everyone." "No, I mean genuinely upset. Or did she recover quickly? Was she smiling for photos? acting like nothing happened. Leanne frowned. She was gracious, professional. She didn't let your behavior ruin her day. Exactly. Within minutes of me leaving, she was fine, back on track, like she'd expected it and had a plan for it. What are you talking about? Selma talked to you privately, didn't she, a few weeks ago? Leanne's expression shifted slightly. How did you know? What did she say? She wanted to make sure the wedding went smoothly. She said sometimes fathers struggle with transitions. She asked me to help keep things calm. She asked you to manage me. She asked me to support our son. No. She asked you to keep me quiet, to make sure I didn't interfere with their plan. Their plan? Gareth, listen to yourself? You sound paranoid. Do I? I turned my computer screen toward her. Look at this timeline. Look at how fast everything moved. Look at the pattern of financial questions. Does any of this feel normal to you? She glanced at the screen, then looked away. Lots of couples move fast. That doesn't mean... Her previous fiancé. Did you know about him? Xavier mentioned she'd been in a relationship before. So what? She married him 6 months after they met, then destroyed him financially and legally, left him broke and traumatized. Leanne's face paled. Xavier didn't mention marriage. Because they probably didn't tell him, just like they probably didn't tell him about the other victims. Other victims? You're saying this is some kind of scam? I'm saying it's a pattern, and we're the latest targets. She sank into the chair across from my desk, her expression stunned. I can't believe... I have someone who can corroborate it, the aunt of the previous victim. She's going to help me gather evidence. Evidence for what? What are you planning to do? Whatever it takes to protect Xavier and our family assets. By doing what? Suing them? That will just push Xavier further away. He's already gone, Leanne. You saw his face today. He chose her over me, over us. And he'll keep choosing her until the mask comes off and he sees what she really is. And if you're wrong, if this is all just your paranoia and you destroy our relationship with our son over nothing, then I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to him. But I'm not wrong. She stood up, shaking her head. I can't do this right now. I need to process. Leanne. No, I need space. I need to think. She left the room. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, a door closing upstairs. I turned back to my computer and kept working. I pulled up my contacts and started making a list of people who might be able to help. Legal experts, financial advisors, a private investigator I'd worked with years ago on a corporate case. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Connor. Iris gave me your number. I'll help however I can. But please be careful. They almost destroyed me. Don't let them do the same to you. I replied, thank you. Can we meet tomorrow? The response came quickly. Yes, I'll send you an address. I put my phone down and stared at the timeline on my screen. Tomorrow I'd start gathering real evidence. I'd build a case so solid that even Xavier couldn't deny it. But tonight, I sat alone in my office, feeling the weight of every choice I'd made today. I'd stopped a wedding. I'd lost my son's trust. I'd been labeled as controlling and paranoid and unstable. But I'd also started something that couldn't be stopped now. I'd lit a fuse. And when it reached the end, the truth would explode in a way that would force everyone to see what I'd seen from the beginning. Mira Holden made a mistake today. She thought I was just another emotional father who could be managed and intimidated into silence. She didn't know I'd spent 30 years learning how to build airtight cases, how to document everything, how to use systems and procedures to create consequences that couldn't be talked away or manipulated. She'd won today's battle, but the war was just beginning, and I don't lose wars. I didn't sleep that night. I kept working, building documents, organizing information. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Xavier's face, the way he'd looked at me in that room, like I was a stranger, like I was the enemy. Around 3 in the morning, Leanne came downstairs. She stood in the doorway of my office, wrapped in her robe, her face drawn and tired. Come to bed, she said quietly. I can't. I need to finish this. Gareth, you've been at this for 8 hours. I know. She stepped into the room and looked at my screens. Multiple documents open, timelines, notes, research on civil fraud cases. What is all this? The beginning of a case. A case against who? Your son's wife? I flinched at the word. Wife. It was official now. Legal. Which meant Mira had access to everything she'd been working toward. Against the people who targeted him, I said. Leanne sat down heavily. I've been thinking about what you said. about Selma talking to me, about the timeline, about how fast everything moved. And I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't want you to be right. She looked at me with exhausted eyes. If you're correct, that means I helped them. I kept you quiet when you were trying to protect Xavier. I chose peace over paying attention. You didn't know. But I should have. I'm his mother. I should have seen the signs. They're very good at what they do, Leanne. They isolate the whole family, not just the target. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what happens now? Now I build a case that can't be ignored. I gather evidence. I document everything. And when I have enough, I present it in a way that forces the truth into the open. And Xavier? Xavier will either see it eventually or he won't. But at least I'll know I tried everything I could to protect him. She nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Do you remember anything Selma said that might be useful? Any details about Mira's family? Any questions about our finances? Leanne thought for a moment. She asked about the trust, the education trust you manage for Xavier. What specifically? She wanted to know if Xavier had full access now that he's 28. I told her no, that you're still the trustee and have discretion over distributions. My blood ran cold. When was this? A month ago, maybe 6 weeks. So they'd been mapping our financial structures well in advance, planning their access points. The trust would have been a major target. It holds a significant amount for Xavier's future. Did you tell anyone else about this conversation? No. She asked me not to. Said she didn't want Xavier to feel like his family was discussing his finances behind his back. Classic isolation tactic. Make the target feel like talking to family about money is a betrayal. Leanne's face hardened. I think I'm starting to see it now. The way she steered conversations, the way she made me feel like I was being helpful by keeping things private. You were being manipulated. We all were. What else do you need to know? I pulled up a fresh document. Everything you can remember. Every conversation with Selma or Kellen. Every time Mira asked about family matters. Every detail, no matter how small. We spent the next hour going through her memories. By the time we finished, I had 2 pages of notes. Patterns of questions. Tactics of emotional manipulation. Oh, small lies that had seemed innocent at the time, but now looked like pieces of a larger strategy. At dawn, Connor texted me an address. A coffee shop in a neighborhood I didn't know well. I showered, changed, and drove there, leaving Leanne asleep on the couch in my office. The coffee shop was quiet. Connor was already there, sitting in a back corner booth. He was thin, pale, with dark circles under his eyes that made him look older than he probably was. I bought 2 coffees and sat across from him. Thank you for meeting me. Iris said you're trying to stop them from doing to your son what they did to me. His voice was flat, hollow. I want to help, but I need you to understand something first. What's that? They're going to come after you. The moment they realize you're building a case, they'll start dismantling your credibility. They'll find dirt. They'll create dirt if they have to. They'll make you look obsessed, unstable, dangerous, and they're good at it. I understand the risk. Do you? Because I didn't. I thought I was just defending myself. I thought the truth would matter. It doesn't. Not when they control the narrative. I leaned forward. Tell me how they did it, step by step. Connor stared into his coffee for a long moment. Then he started talking. It was exactly as Iris had described, but worse in the details. The way Mira had pushed for financial integration immediately after the wedding. The way Kellen had positioned himself as a brother figure, while subtly isolating Connor from his real friends. The way Selma had played the loving mother-in-law while gathering ammunition for later. 3 months in, Mira started picking fights, Connor said. Little things at first. I'd forget to tell her about a lunch meeting. She'd say I was hiding things. I'd question an expense. She'd say I was controlling her. Every disagreement got twisted into a pattern of abuse. Did you realize what was happening? Not at first. I thought we were just having normal marriage problems. I tried couples counseling. But she used the sessions to build her case. Made me look defensive. Made herself look like a victim desperately trying to save the relationship. When did you realize it was intentional? When she filed for separation, she had everything prepared, documentation, witness statements from her family, a timeline of abuse that was completely fabricated but looked convincing on paper. My lawyer said it was the most organized divorce filing he'd ever seen. What about your family? They tried to help, but Mira had anticipated that too. She had recordings of my mother harassing her. Evidence of my father trying to bribe her to leave me. Everything my family did to protect me got weaponized against us. And the settlement? $200,000. Plus, I had to agree to the NDA and not contest any of her claims publicly. My lawyer advised me to take it, said fighting would cost more and destroy me in the process. I sat back, processing. It was a sophisticated operation. Not quite illegal, but absolutely predatory. They used the legal system as a weapon, social pressure as a cage, and emotional manipulation as a scalpel. I need documentation, I said. Timeline, financial records, communications, anything that shows the pattern. I kept everything. My lawyer said to destroy it after the settlement, but I couldn't. It felt like erasing the truth. Can you share it with me? Connor hesitated. The NDA. I'm not asking you to violate it publicly. I'm asking you to help me protect my son. Anything you give me stays confidential unless we can prove a larger pattern of fraud that invalidates those agreements. He pulled out a USB drive from his pocket. Everything's on here. Bank statements, text messages, emails, recordings, legal filings, the whole story. I took it carefully, like it was a bomb, which in a way it was. Thank you. Mr. Colton? Yes? Your son is going to hate you for a while, maybe a long time. You need to prepare for that. I know. And you still think it's worth it? I thought about Xavier, about the way he'd looked at Mira during the ceremony, about the future she was planning to steal from him. Yes, I said. It's worth it. Connor nodded slowly. Then good luck. You're going to need it. I left the coffee shop with the USB drive in my pocket, feeling like I was carrying evidence of a crime that wasn't quite a crime. Back in my car, I sat for a moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed. A text from Xavier. Mom told me you're building some kind of case against Mira. Stay away from us. I mean it. If you keep this up, you'll never see me again. I stared at the message. He wasn't asking what I'd found. He wasn't curious about the evidence. He was shutting me down before I could even present it, which meant Mira already knew, which meant they were already preparing their countermove. I drove to my office, my actual workplace, not my home office. I needed secure systems. Professional documentation, a paper trail that couldn't be questioned. My colleague Raymond found me at my desk 2 hours later, surrounded by printed documents. Gareth, what are you doing here on a Sunday? Working. He looked at the papers spread across my desk. This doesn't look like firm business. It's not. It's personal. But I need to use our secure servers to protect some documents. Raymond closed the door and sat down. What's going on? I gave him the summary, the wedding, the note, Connor's story, the evidence I was gathering. Raymond listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You realize this could blow up in your face, he finally said. I know. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong. But if you are, you'll lose your son, maybe your wife, possibly your reputation. Raymond, I've spent 30 years analyzing risk. I know what I'm seeing. He studied my face. You need help? Maybe, if this goes where I think it's going. What do you need? Access to our legal team. Quietly. Off the books for now. That's a big ask. I know, but these people are good at exploiting systems, so I need someone who understands how to use systems to fight back. Raymond thought for a moment, then nodded. I'll make some calls. But Gareth, be careful. People who are this good at manipulation don't lose gracefully. After he left, I uploaded Connor's files to our secure server, backed them up in 3 separate locations, and started building a comprehensive timeline. 2 relationships, 2 marriages, 2 extractions of money. The pattern was undeniable, but I needed more. I needed to show active fraud, not just a pattern of bad behavior. I needed to prove they were deliberately targeting wealthy families, gathering intelligence, and executing a coordinated scheme. My phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Mr. Colton, this is Maura Lyle from the Ashwood estate. Oh, hello? I have something you should know. After yesterday's incident, I reviewed our security footage as part of the incident report. And? There's something on it you need to see. The Halden family had several conversations before the ceremony that concerned me professionally. My pulse quickened. What kind of conversations? I'd rather show you in person. Can you come to the venue this afternoon? I'll be there in 30 minutes. I grabbed my jacket and drove back to the Ashwood estate. Maura met me at a side entrance, away from the public areas. I'm showing you this because I believe you were trying to prevent harm, she said as we walked to her office. But officially, this conversation never happened. Understood. She pulled up footage on her computer, time-stamped from yesterday morning. The video showed Mira, Kellen, and Selma in one of the private hallways. Watch this, Mora said, turning up the audio. On the screen, Kellen was speaking. If the old man tries anything, we stick to the script. Mira plays the victim. We paint him as unstable, push the son to cut him off completely. Selma's voice. The trust is the main target. Once we have access, we can leverage it for the real extraction. Mira. What if he brings up Connor? Kellen. We deny everything. Say it was a bitter ex spreading lies. The NDA protects us. My hands clenched. There it was. Clear evidence of premeditation, strategic planning, acknowledgement of previous victims. Can I have a copy of this? I asked. No, our policy doesn't allow it, but I've filed it as part of the incident report, which means it's preserved. If you obtain a subpoena or legal order, it would be available. Thank you. This is wrong, Mora finished. This is wrong. I've been in this business 20 years. I know the difference between family drama and something darker. I left the venue with my heart pounding. I had it. Real evidence. Not just a pattern, but recorded acknowledgement of a scheme. Now I needed to figure out how to use it. Monday morning, I contacted a lawyer. Not someone from my firm. This needed to be completely separate. I called Caleb Stroud, the attorney who'd handled my father's estate and who'd helped set up Xavier's trust fund years ago. Gareth, good to hear from you, Caleb said when I got through. How's Xavier? I heard about the wedding. That's why I'm calling. I need legal advice. Personal matter. Come by this afternoon. I'll clear some time. I spent the morning organizing everything I had. Connor's documentation, the timeline, Leanne's notes, the venue footage details. By the time I arrived at Caleb's office, I had a 3-inch binder of organized evidence. Caleb was 61, gray-haired, with the careful manner of someone who'd seen every kind of family disaster. He listened without interrupting as I walked him through the whole story. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. This is complicated, he finally said. But it's fraud, right? Potentially. But proving criminal fraud requires showing deliberate intent to deceive for financial gain. What you have is suggestive, but not quite sufficient. My chest tightened. The venue footage would need to be subpoenaed, which requires a civil case to be filed. And even then, a decent lawyer could argue it was just family members venting privately, not evidence of actual fraud. So what can I do? Protect the trust. That's within your authority as trustee. You can refuse to make distributions if you have reasonable concern about undue influence or financial exploitation. Xavier will fight me. He can challenge your decision, but you have wide discretion under the trust terms. As long as your concerns are documented and reasonable, you're on solid ground. What about warning other potential victims? Caleb frowned. That's tricky. If you make public accusations without ironclad proof, you open yourself to defamation suits. And based on what you've told me, these people know how to weaponize the legal system. So I just sit back and watch them do it again? No. You build a stronger case. You work with Connor to see if you can find other victims willing to come forward. You document everything your new daughter-in-law does from here forward, and you prepare for the long game. The long game. That's what this was becoming. Not a quick rescue, but a strategic campaign. In the meantime, Caleb continued, I'll draft a letter to Xavier informing him that the trust distributions are temporarily frozen pending review. It's a standard trustee action, perfectly legal. He's going to lose his mind. Probably, but it will also slow down whatever they're planning. They can't access what they can't get to. I left Caleb's office feeling both relieved and frustrated. I had a strategy, but it was going to take time. And time meant watching Xavier sink deeper into Mira's trap. That evening, I got the call I'd been dreading. Xavier. What did you do? His voice was shaking with rage. Xavier. I got a letter from your lawyer. You're freezing the trust? Are you kidding me right now? I have concerns. Concerns? Concerns? You're trying to control me with money now? That's your next move? Son, listen to me. I have evidence that Mira... I don't care about your evidence. I don't care about your paranoid conspiracy theories. You're just trying to punish me for not choosing you over my wife. My wife. The word was a knife. Xavier. She's not who you think she is. She did this to someone else. She... Stop, he was shouting now. Just stop. I'm done listening to your lies. I'm done letting you poison my life. I'm not lying. I have documentation. I have recordings. I don't care. Don't you get it? I don't care. Whatever you think you have, I don't want to see it. I want you to leave us alone. I can't do that. Then you're not my father anymore. The line went silent. For a moment, I thought he'd hung up. Then I heard him breathing, ragged and angry. Xavier, please, just look at what I have. Just give me 1 hour to show you. No, you had your chance. You could have supported me. You could have been happy for me. Instead, you chose to declare war on my marriage. So congratulations, Dad. You won. You successfully pushed me away forever. This time, he did hang up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling the finality of it. He wasn't angry. He was done. And that was worse. Leanne found me in my office an hour later. Xavier called me. I figured he would. He's devastated. He thinks you're using the trust to punish him. I'm using the trust to protect him. He doesn't see it that way. And Gareth, neither do I, entirely. I looked up at her. What does that mean? It means I see what you're trying to do. I understand your concerns. But freezing his trust fund feels punitive. It feels like you're proving Mira right about you being controlling. I'm the trustee. I have a fiduciary duty. You're also his father, and right now you're driving him further into her arms. So what should I do? Just hand over the money and watch her take everything? I don't know, Leanne's voice cracked. I don't know what you should do. I just know that our son isn't speaking to us. Our family is broken, and I don't know how to fix it. She left the room. I heard her crying in the hallway. I sat there feeling the weight of every choice I'd made. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have stayed quiet, smiled at the wedding, hoped for the best. Maybe interfering had only made things worse. But then I thought about the venue footage, the cold calculation in their voices, the way they'd called Xavier the son, not by name, like he was just a mark, not a person. No, I wasn't wrong. I was just alone. My phone buzzed. A text from Davin Rokes. Heard through Raymond you're building a case. I know someone else who might help, former family friend of the Haldens. Willing to talk if you guarantee confidentiality. I replied immediately. When and where? The response came fast. Tomorrow, I'll send details. I spent the rest of the night adding to my documentation, every interaction, every red flag, every piece of evidence that Mira and her family were running a coordinated scheme. Around midnight, I received an email from Caleb. He'd drafted the trust freeze letter and added something else, a formal notice that I was conducting a trustee review of all recent financial requests and access attempts related to Xavier's accounts. It was bureaucratic language, dry, professional, but it was also a shield. As long as I was acting in my official capacity as trustee, they couldn't easily attack me without raising questions about their own motives. I forwarded the email to myself on multiple accounts, printed physical copies, backed everything up to 3 separate secure locations. If they were going to come after me, and I knew they would, I needed to be ready. Tuesday afternoon, I met Davin's contact at a parking garage downtown. She was a woman in her late 40s, well-dressed, nervous. She introduced herself as Patricia. I knew the Haldens socially for years, she said, looking around like she expected to be followed. Selma and I were in the same charity circle. What can you tell me about them? They're predators, sophisticated ones. They don't target random people, they research. They find families with money, but also with weak points. Sons who are eager to prove independence, fathers who are distant or controlling. They create a wedge and exploit it. How many times have they done this? That I know of? At least 4, probably more. My stomach turned. 4? Connor was one. There was a man named James before that, and 2 others whose names I never learned, all the same pattern. Quick engagement, rushed marriage, then a systematic extraction of assets followed by a strategic divorce. Why hasn't anyone stopped them? NDAs, social pressure, shame. The victims don't want anyone to know they were fooled. The families don't want the public embarrassment. So the Haldens just keep moving. New city, new social circles, new marks. Do you have any documentation? No, but I can testify to what I witnessed. The strategy sessions Selma used to have with charity board members, figuring out which families were vulnerable. The way Kellen would gather intelligence at social events. The way Mira practiced her performance. Practiced? She rehearses, Mr. Colton. I saw her do it. She'd role-play conversations, test different emotional approaches, figure out which version of herself worked best for different situations. It's not love, it's a performance art. I recorded everything she said. When we finished, I asked if she'd be willing to give a formal statement if needed. Patricia hesitated. If it helps stop them, yes. But I need protection. They're vindictive. If they find out I talked to you, I'll keep your information secure. She nodded and left quickly, glancing over her shoulder multiple times. I sat in my car afterward, feeling sick. 4 victims. probably more, all of them too ashamed or legally bound to speak up. And Xavier was just the latest. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Hello? Mr. Colton? This is Rena Sato. I work in fraud prevention at First National Bank. You were referred to me by Caleb Stroud. Yes. Thank you for calling. Mr. Stroud mentioned you have concerns about potential financial exploitation involving a family member. I'd like to discuss the bank's procedures for flagging suspicious account activity. When can we meet? Tomorrow morning? 10 o'clock? I'll be there. Things were accelerating. I had evidence. I had witnesses. I had legal representation. I had the trust frozen. I had a bank compliance officer interested in the case. But I didn't have Xavier. And without him, all of this might be for nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about the venue footage, the cold way they talked about him, the mechanical planning of his destruction. Around 2 a.m, I heard the front door open. Footsteps. Someone was in the house. I grabbed my phone and went downstairs quietly. The living room light was on. Xavier was there, standing in the middle of the room, looking lost. Xavier? He turned. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I don't know why I'm here, he said quietly. You're always welcome here. You know that. Am I? Because it doesn't feel like it anymore. He sat on the couch heavily. Mira's furious about the trust freeze. I imagine she is. She says you're trying to destroy our marriage before it even starts. I'm trying to protect you. From what, Dad? From being happy? From having a life? I sat across from him. Xavier, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. Not to Mira's version of me. To me. He didn't respond, but he didn't leave either. The woman Mira was with before you, his name is Connor. She married him, took $200,000, and left him financially and emotionally destroyed. I've met with him. I have documentation, bank records, legal filings, everything. Xavier's jaw tightened. Mira told me about him. He was abusive. She had to escape. That's what she says. But Connor has recordings that tell a different story. Recordings of her and her family planning the whole thing. You're lying. I'm not. Xavier, I have evidence. Witnesses. A pattern of predatory behavior spanning multiple victims. I don't believe you. Then why are you here? In the middle of the night? If you're so sure I'm wrong, why come? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, because sometimes I catch her looking at me, and it's like she's seeing through me, like I'm not a person, just a thing, an objective. My heart broke. She is seeing through you, because to her, you're not her husband, you're a mark. Don't say that. Xavier, please, just look at the evidence. Just give me 1 hour. If you still think I'm wrong after that, I'll back off. I'll unfreeze the trust. I'll leave you alone. He stood up abruptly. I can't. If I even consider that you might be right, then what? Then my whole life is a lie. My marriage is a lie. And I chose her over my family based on a lie. He headed for the door. Xavier, wait. I can't, Dad. I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be ready. He left. I heard his car start and drive away. I sat there in the dark living room, feeling the weight of his words. He knew something was wrong. On some level, he knew. But knowing would mean admitting he'd been fooled, admitting he'd destroyed his relationship with me over a con artist. And that was too painful to face, so he'd keep choosing the lie, keep defending Mira, keep pushing me away, unless I could make the truth so undeniable that he had no choice but to see it. Wednesday morning, I met with Rena Sato at First National Bank. She was sharp-eyed, professional, the kind of person who'd spent years spotting financial schemes. Mr. Stroud gave me an overview, she said as we sat in a private meeting room. You believe a family member is being targeted for financial exploitation through marriage? I don't believe it. I know it. I laid out everything, Connor's case, Patricia's testimony, the venue footage details, the pattern of quick marriages followed by systematic asset extraction. Rena took notes steadily. When I finished, she looked up. Do you have evidence of attempted access to your son's accounts since the marriage? Not yet. They only got married 4 days ago. But you're anticipating attempts? I'm certain of it. The trust is frozen, but there are other accounts. Joint savings he set up. Insurance policies, retirement funds. I can flag those accounts for unusual activity. Any attempts to make major changes will be reported to me. If we see a pattern consistent with exploitation, we can take protective action. What kind of action? Freeze the accounts pending investigation. Require in-person verification for major transactions. In extreme cases, report to elder abuse and financial exploitation units. He's 28. That's not elder abuse. The principles are the same. Financial exploitation through undue influence. We take it seriously. She set up the flags on Xavier's accounts while I sat there. It felt intrusive, like I was invading my son's privacy. But I'd watched Connor's whole life fall apart because no one intervened soon enough. I wasn't going to let that happen to Xavier. When I left the bank, I got a call from Caleb. "We have a problem," he said. "What kind of problem?" "Xavier filed a challenge to the trust freeze. He's claiming you're abusing your discretion as trustee and acting out of personal animus." "Who's his lawyer?" "Someone named Bradford Kane. Very expensive, very aggressive." "The Haldens are bankrolling this." "Probably. Which means they're escalating. You need to be prepared for a fight." I drove back to my office and found Raymond waiting for me. "I talked to our legal team," he said. "They're willing to consult on the trust dispute, but Gareth, you need to know what you're walking into." "Tell me." "If the Haldens are as sophisticated as you say, they've probably already started building a counter-narrative. They'll paint you as an overbearing father who couldn't let go. They'll use the wedding disruption as evidence of instability. They'll make this about you, not about them." "I know." "Do you? Because if they successfully challenge the trust freeze, you lose your leverage. And if they paint you as unstable, everything else you say becomes suspect." He was right. This was a war on two fronts, legal and reputational. I needed to win both. That afternoon, I received a certified letter. It was from Bradford Kane's office, formally notifying me that Xavier was challenging my trustee authority and requesting an immediate court hearing to unfreeze the funds. Attached was a declaration from Xavier. I read it in my office, my hands shaking. It described me as controlling, manipulative, unable to accept his adult independence. It claimed I had a history of trying to manage his life decisions. It said I'd made wild accusations about his wife without evidence, disrupted his wedding, and was now using financial control as punishment. Every word felt like a knife, not because it was true, but because Xavier believed it enough to put it in writing. There was also a declaration from Mira. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, expressing concern for Xavier's father's mental health, suggesting I needed help, positioning herself as the caring daughter-in-law worried about family harmony. I called Caleb. They're moving fast. They have to. The longer the freeze stays in place, the more time you have to build your case. When's the hearing? Next week. Judge Marilyn Cortez. She's fair, but no nonsense. You'll need to present clear evidence that your actions as trustee were reasonable and necessary. I have evidence. Enough? That was the question. Did I have enough to prove exploitation in a courtroom? Enough to overcome the emotional narrative they'd built around me? I spent the next 3 days preparing. Caleb and I built a comprehensive presentation of the evidence, Connor's documentation, Patricia's testimony, the venue footage details, the pattern across multiple victims. But we had a problem. The venue footage hadn't been officially subpoenaed. Patricia was scared to testify publicly. Connor's materials were protected by NDA. Everything was suggestive, but not quite concrete enough for a legal standard. "We need a smoking pistol," Caleb said. "Something undeniable." "I'm working on it." Friday evening, I got an unexpected call from Maura Lyle. "Mr. Colton, something happened today I thought you should know about." "What?" "The Halden family came back to the venue. They wanted to review the security footage from the wedding day. Said they were concerned about liability issues after your disruption." My stomach dropped. "Did you show them?" "I showed them edited footage, the main ceremony area, public spaces, but not the private hallways where they were talking." "Why not?" "Because something felt wrong. They were too eager, too specific about what time frames they wanted to see, like they were looking for something. They're covering their tracks." That's what I thought, so I made backup copies of the original footage before they arrived. If you want to pursue legal access to it, everything's preserved. "Thank you. I know. I've been in this business long enough to recognize predators when I see them." After we hung up, I immediately called Caleb and told him. He filed an emergency motion to subpoena the venue footage before Monday's hearing. Saturday, Leanne found me in my office again. "You need to sleep," she said. "I will, after the hearing." "Gareth, what if you lose? What if the judge unfreezes the trust and you still don't have enough to prove your case? Then I'll keep fighting." "Until what? Until you've lost everything trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved?" I looked at her. "Would you rather I give up? Let them take everything from him?" "I'd rather have my family back." "We will. When this is over and the truth is out, we'll have Xavier back." "You can't know that." "I have to believe it, because if I don't..." I couldn't finish the sentence, because the alternative was too painful. The idea that Xavier might never see the truth, might never forgive me, might spend his life thinking I'd betrayed him. I couldn't accept that. Sunday night, I reviewed my presentation one more time. Everything was organized, every document indexed, every witness statement prepared. I was ready. Monday morning, I drove to the courthouse with Caleb. The hearing was in a small courtroom, less formal than a trial, but still intimidating. Xavier was already there with Mira and Bradford Caney. He wouldn't look at me. Mira touched his arm constantly, whispering in his ear, playing the supportive wife. Kellen and Selma sat in the gallery, watching with calculating eyes. Judge Cortez entered. She was in her mid-50s, with sharp features and an expression that suggested she'd heard every possible variation of family drama. This is a hearing on Xavier Colton's petition to remove Gareth Colton as trustee and unfreeze trust assets, she said. Mr. Kane, you may present your case. Bradford Caney stood. He was everything Raymond had warned about. Polished, aggressive, skilled at emotional manipulation disguised as legal argument. He painted me as a control freak who couldn't accept my son's independence. He presented Xavier's declaration. He brought up the wedding disruption, framing it as evidence of instability. He suggested I was using my role as trustee to punish Xavier for marrying against my wishes. It was effective. I could see the judge's expression shift slightly, like she was considering his narrative. Then it was Caleb's turn. He stood calmly and laid out our case. He presented the trust terms, which gave me wide discretion to protect assets from undue influence. He introduced Connor's documentation, redacted to protect the NDA but showing the pattern clearly. Your Honor, Mr. Colton isn't acting out of personal animus. He's acting on clear evidence of a coordinated scheme to exploit his son financially. The Halden family has done this before, multiple times, and all the warning signs are present in this case. Caney objected. These are inflammatory accusations without proof. We have proof, Caleb interrupted. And if the court will allow, we'd like to present video evidence. The judge leaned forward. Video evidence? Security footage from the wedding venue showing the Halden family discussing their plans to extract assets from the trust. Caney's face went white. Objection. That footage was obtained without... It was obtained through legal subpoena, Caleb said, handing copies to the judge and Caney. Filed Friday evening. The judge reviewed the documents. The subpoena appears to be in order. I'll allow the evidence. We set up the laptop. The courtroom went quiet. The footage played. Kellen's voice filled the room. If the old man tries anything, we stick to the script. Mira plays the victim. We paint him as unstable, push the son to cut him off completely. Selma. The trust is the main target. Once we have access, we can leverage it for the real extraction. Mira. What if he brings up Connor? Kellen. We deny everything, say it was a bitter ex spreading lies. The NDA protects us. The video ended. The silence was deafening. I looked at Xavier. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. Mira had her hand on his arm, but he pulled away slowly, staring at the laptop screen like he couldn't process what he'd just heard. Your Honor, Caleb said quietly, this isn't about control. It's about protection. And Mr. Colton was correct to freeze the trust until these concerns could be properly addressed. Judge Cortez looked at the defense table. Mr. Kane, does your client wish to respond? Caney looked at Mira and Kellen. They were whispering urgently. Mira's perfect mask was cracking. Your Honor, we'd like to request a recess to consult with our clients. No recess, the judge said sharply. Ms. Halden, you were recorded discussing plans to extract assets from this trust. Do you have an explanation? Mira stood slowly. Her voice was shaking. That was taken out of context. We were just venting about family stress. You specifically mentioned leveraging the trust for extraction, the judge interrupted. That doesn't sound like venting. That sounds like premeditation. We weren't... And you mentioned someone named Connor. Would that be Connor Morrow, the previous young man you married and divorced 2 years ago? Mira's face went white. How did you... I have his case file, Caleb said, holding up documents. Complete with settlement records showing a $200,000 payment under suspicious circumstances, and we have a witness prepared to testify about at least 2 other similar cases. Kellen stood up. This is harassment. You're targeting my family. Sit down, sir, Judge Cortez said icily, or I'll have you removed. She turned to Xavier. Mr. Colton, do you still wish to proceed with this petition? Xavier was staring at Mira. His whole world was collapsing in real time. I don't... Xavier, don't listen to them, Mira said quickly, her voice desperate now. This is all a misunderstanding. They're twisting everything. You said the trust was the main target, Xavier said quietly. You said extraction, like I was a job. Baby, no, I love you. Don't. He stood up, pulling away from her completely. Don't touch me. He looked at me for the first time since the hearing started. His eyes were full of tears. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't listen. Xavier, you were right. About everything. And I destroyed our relationship defending her. I wanted to go to him, to hug him, to tell him it was okay. But Caleb put a hand on my arm, reminding me we were still in a courtroom. Judge Cortez watched the family drama unfold with a professional but sympathetic expression. Based on the evidence presented, she said, I'm denying the petition to remove Mr. Gareth Colton as trustee. The trust freeze will remain in place pending a full investigation into potential fraud and financial exploitation. She turned to Mira. Miss Halden, I'm also ordering you to appear for a deposition regarding your financial activities, and I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential fraud charges. Caney tried to object, but the judge cut him off. We're done here. This hearing is adjourned. She left the bench. The courtroom erupted in motion. Kellen and Selma were already heading for the exit. Mira stood there frozen, her perfect mask completely shattered. Xavier walked over to me slowly. Dad, It's okay, I said. We'll fix this. How? How do I fix what I did? One day at a time. Mira suddenly appeared beside him. Xavier, please let me explain. No. He turned to face her. I heard you on that video. I heard exactly what you think of me, what I am to you. That's not... Was any of it real? Did you ever actually love me? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was answer enough. Xavier looked at me. What happens now? Now you go home, Caleb said. Let us handle the legal aspects. The authorities will investigate. And you work on healing. Xavier nodded numbly. He looked completely lost. Leanne appeared in the courtroom. She'd been waiting outside. She rushed to Xavier and hugged him tight. He broke down in her arms, sobbing. I stood there watching my son fall apart, knowing it was necessary but still feeling the pain of it. Mira backed away slowly. Kellen appeared and grabbed her arm. We're leaving. Now. As they headed for the exit, Mira glanced back at Xavier one more time. Not with love or regret, with cold calculation, like she was already planning her next move. But then she saw me watching her, and for just a second, her mask dropped completely. I saw what she really was, not a romantic con artist, just a predator who'd lost her prey. She turned and left. The courtroom emptied. It was just me, Caleb, Leanne, and Xavier. What now? Xavier asked quietly. Now, I said, we make sure they never do this to anyone else. Xavier looked up at me with red eyes. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything I said, everything I did. You were manipulated. That's what they do. But I chose to believe them over you. I chose to... You chose what made sense at the time. Now you know better. That's what matters. Caleb packed up his files. The DA's office will want to interview Xavier. They'll need his testimony about what Mira said, what the family pushed him toward. I'll tell them everything, Xavier said. We left the courthouse together. Outside, reporters were waiting. Somehow word had gotten out. Cameras everywhere. Questions shouted from all directions. Caleb handled them. The Colton family has no comment at this time. Please respect their privacy. We got to the parking structure. Xavier stopped. Dad, I need to know something. What? How did you know? From the very beginning, how did you see what I couldn't? I thought about it. About all the small moments that had added up. The pattern I'd recognized because I'd spent 30 years looking for patterns in compliance work. Because I'm your father, I said, and sometimes that means seeing the danger before you do. He nodded. I won't doubt you again. You might. You should. Healthy skepticism is good, but next time maybe just listen before you completely cut me off? He laughed weakly. Deal. We stood there in the parking garage, the four of us, as the afternoon light filtered through concrete pillars. My family, broken and healing and together. It would take time. Xavier would need therapy. The legal process would drag on for months. The Haldens would fight back. They'd try to paint me as the villain in their story, but it didn't matter anymore, because I'd done what I set out to do. I'd stopped them. I'd saved my son, and I'd made sure they'd face real consequences for the first time. Xavier took a deep breath. What happens if the DA charges them? Then they'll face trial, and if they're convicted, they'll have criminal records that follow them forever. Good. His voice was hard. They deserve it. I put my hand on his shoulder. Xavier leaned into it, and I felt the weight of everything we'd been through.